Okay, so what I want to talk about now is this idea of what's known as place value. Okay, so place value. So what does that mean? So within within maths, we have what are known as numerals. So numerals. So what are the numerals that we use in order to make up our numbers? So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Now, so these are what are known as, these are the numerals that we use in our counting system, or our number system. And you can see here that we have 10 of them, starting at 0 and ending in 9. So a way to think about these numerals, what they are, is they're basically symbols that we use to represent our numbers. And as you can see, and as I said, there are 10 of them starting from 0 to 9. And these numerals, they can be used to represent, any number, large or small numbers. So just different combinations of these can be used to represent lots of different numbers. So if we think about just some common numbers, so let's say you could have 1 and 0, you've 10, okay? But also as well, you could arrange this like so, 0 and 1, which is 1, okay? If we think about, you could also arrange it like this, 1, 0, 0, which is 100, or you could represent it as 1, 0, 0, 0, which is 1,000. So you can see here, just with these two numbers, you can represent a huge range of numbers. And also then, like what we can start to do is we can start, we can mix them. So we could say we could 4, 3, and 2. So think about the numbers. If we use the numerals 4, 3, and 2, all the different numbers we can represent. So we could say 2, 3, 4. So that's one number. We could say 4, 3, 2. That's another number. And we could say, let's say, so 3, 2, 4. So these are three distinct numbers, and they all have different values. So they're not all the same. Some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller. But they all contain the same numerals, 3, 2, and 4. So what we can do is just with these 10 numerals, we can represent loads of different numbers in many different ways, large and small numbers. Now, what's really important and what makes this system very powerful is this idea of place values. So it's not only the numerals that you use, but it's where you place them that matters. Like if we take here, for example, these examples, so we're using the same numerals, but we can see that we're placing them differently. They're not placed in the same position. And because they're not placed in the same position, they have different values. So if you like to think about it, so the numerals position gives it its value. So there's many different positions that we have, let's say, in our counting system, but these are the first few really that are important that you need to kind of be aware of. So this is what's known as a place value diagram. So we call it. So this is called a place value diagram. Okay. So we can see here that there's a lot of emphasis on place. Okay, and that's very, very important in relation to, so you have numerals and then you have their position or their place, let's say, and we can look at it like this. So if we think about the number 1, if we think about the number 10, for example, Like where would we place this? Okay, so we can see that the number 10, so it has 0 units and it has 110. Okay, so this is where we will place it, let's say on a place value diagram. So you have the tens and you have the units. Okay, so it has 110 and 0 units. If we were to think about this number here, so let's say that's that one there that we've just placed. Let's say if we take this one here, 0 and 1, so where would we place that? Again, if we think about it, it has 1 unit value and it has no 10 value. So each place represents a particular value. So 10, you have tens, so you have units, tens, hundreds, thousands, and 10,000s. If we take the number 100, for example, and we'll use this color here. So the number 100, so it has 0 units, it has 0 tens, and then it has 100. Okay, so again, that represents the number 100. And so on, if we take 1,000, for example, 1,000 has 0 units, 0 tens, 0 hundreds, and then it has 1,000ths value. So this is what we mean by place value. And as we see is like we can take all of these numbers and represent them. Like if we think about 4, for example, so you have the 4 represents, so that's the units, the 10 here, or the 3 here represents the tens, okay, and then the 2 represents the hundreds, so the hundreds. Okay, so you can see 2, 3, and 4, it has 3 place values. The first place value is the units place value, and it has 4 in that. The second place value is the tens place value, and it has 3 in that. And the next place value is the hundreds place value, and it has 2 units in that. So that's what we mean by place value. So this is a massive advantage, let's say, for the number system that we use, because you can take, like, for example, 10 numerals and you can represent many different numbers. So let's just kind of have a look and look at this then in a little bit more detail. Like just as an example, like if I was to place a 1 here, that just represents the number 1, okay? But if I was to take that number and place it up here, it means, so that means 1,000. So that would be 1,000. Okay, if I was to take that number and place it here, that means 10. Okay, so again, you can see depending on where we place it, it'll represent a specific value. Which makes this system very, very powerful. So let's just think about a couple of different ways. If I was to place, so if I place the number here, if I place the 1 here, if I place that 1 here, that gives me 1,000. If I place the 1 here, that gives me 10. Okay. If I was to place the 1 up here, that gives me 10,000. So you can see that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 places after the 1. But again, they all represent different values. So you have 10, 1,000, and 10,000. And that's what we mean by place values. So it's very important that you know, like, let's say, these place values. So if you take a number, let's say 2000, so you start off with this, you start here and you move in this direction. So the first number, or the first numeral, represents the units. The second numeral represents the tens. The third numeral represents the hundreds. The fourth numeral represents the thousands. And then if there's a fifth numeral, it'll represent the tens of thousands. So again, that's just the idea of place value and how important the place value is. So just it's important that you know the place values, and then that you know that we have these 10 numerals that we use to represent all the numbers that we use within maths. Okay, so hopefully that made sense, and thank you for listening.